Hello, and welcome back to Bengal Bites, a podcast about the Cincinnati Bengals from a real, honest perspective. I'm your host, Derek, and this is episode 132. This is the preseason week 1 recap episode. Bengals had their first game at Paycor Stadium of 2026. This game came against the Detroit Lions, and for the first time in about 5 years, the Bengals won their first preseason opening game 16-14 in a rainy, not especially entertaining preseason game, but nobody got seriously injured. Joe Burrow showed some flashes of the old Joe Burrow to Jamar Chase connection that we remember. The defense made some plays, so there were a lot of things to take away from this that were positive. There are a few negatives, but we won't harp on those too much. But this Bengals roster is looking very competitive in terms of those middle to back end of the roster spots, those backup spots. Most of the starter positions are pretty well solidified. There aren't going to be too many questions, maybe a few on the defense because there's so many moving parts on the defense this year, but we'll get in all the things that happened Bengals related, and then we'll cover a few of the major storylines that happened around the NFL because every other team was also having their first preseason game. So we're getting to see our first glimpses of some of these rookies coming in, playing in the NFL. And this was the first time we also saw former Giant Dexter Lawrence in a Bengals uniform. So all those things were great. And we'll also discuss the coverage of the game and all that kind of stuff. But preseason, week 1, Zach Taylor said that the fans could rest easy knowing they're going to be able to go to the game and see Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Dexter Lawrence, and that's what they got. I think the Bengals starting offense played for about the first quarter or so, definitely like the first 2 drives on offense. Joe Burrow was in there. They only got a field goal, no touchdowns, but Joe Burrow was 5 for 6 for 39 yards. He played 13 total snaps. His best play was, I think it was a play action. Over the middle, he found Jamar Chase on a deep in breaking route where Joe Burrow put it perfectly right by the inside linebacker who was kind of dropping into a zone coverage. It looked like it went just right by the fingertips of the linebacker while he tried to swat it away, went right into the waiting arms of Jamar Chase. So when you see it from that angle from behind the play, it's like, wow, I can't believe Joe Burrow even attempted that pass, but that's how good he is. He can fit those tight window passes in there like nobody else in the NFL can do. And that's the timing between him and Jamar Chase that showed up so evidently. He also, I think it was Joe Burrow, might have been Joe Flacco, had a nice pass to Andre Yosevich up the right sideline, where this time Andre, instead of stepping out of bounds, he put his shoulder down, tried to get those extra yards. That's exactly what I wanted to see out of Andre. Don't get careless and put your body in a vulnerable position, but when you got the opportunity to get those extra yards, every little inch counts on the football field. So I was glad to see Andre take advantage of his opportunities because everybody's labeling him as some kind of a drop artist. So, oh, he's got the drops. He's dropping this. I saw Jeff Hobson on Bengals.com. It's supposed to be, the team website. It's supposed to be positive. He's got writing articles about Andre Yosefas dropping passes in practice. It's like, come on, Jeff. You have to do my boy like that. But otherwise, I can't remember. I don't think Charlie Jones caught any passes. I guess I could go to the box score. But offensive starters, I don't think T. Higgins was really involved. Chase Brown had a few carries up the middle mostly that got, I don't think, let me see if he had any catches. No Chase Brown targets. No T. Higgins targets. So Charlie Jones, 2 targets, no catches. But I guess the star of the night, Dante Myers, number 81. He's a punt returner, wide receiver. I think he played in the CFL last year. He had 3 receptions for 29 yards, a long of 13 on 4 targets. He also had a end around for 13 yards, and he had a punt return, I think. So Dante Myers is making a name for himself, showing up on the stat sheet, making plays. I think he's been making plays in camp, so he's one to watch. And then the rookie wide receiver, Colby Young, he had 2 catches on 4 targets. I think he dropped a pass that was kind of like a fade ball high from Joe Flacco. He was not able to come down with it. But you can't take too much out of this game because, number one, it's preseason. The starters aren't playing, or if they are playing, like the Bengals starters were playing against the Lions backups. The Lions starters didn't even play in this game. So you can't really take too much out of that because it's not really apples to apples comparison. And also, it was raining for the better part of this. After like the second quarter on, it was raining. So the ball was wet. The field was kind of slippery. We saw, was it Taj Brooks or Kendall Milton had a fumble where the ball just kind of slipped out of his hands while he was running down the field, not even getting contact. He like slipped down onto the ground and fumbled. I'm just trying to find it in the box score. I don't know why it doesn't show me. Yeah, that was Kendall Milton. It was like a bad snap to Joe Flacco. There was a few fumbles. Josh Johnson had a fumble. Josh Johnson was having a rough time really doing much of anything when he got in there. Bengals have 2 quarterbacks over 40 years old, and Joe Burrow, who, when he went under center, not in shotgun, Joe Burrow moves like an old man. It was weird because Joe Burrow plays like so high. He doesn't bend his knees very much. He's always in that shotgun, almost standing completely upright. And when he went under center, things were just not moving like a professional NFL quarterback. Like, if, to give you a comparison, like if you compared him to like a Matthew Stafford or somebody like that. Like Matthew Stafford looks so smooth under center. He's got the play action fakes. You never know where the ball is going, who's got it, what's going on. And he's just like deceptive with his ball handling, all that kind of stuff. Joe Burrow looked like, a guy who hasn't been under center since high school. Like, he just looked very awkward with it. So hopefully that's something that they'll be able to improve as the season goes on, because that's one of the elements that was missing, was that explosive play. They always talk about, gotta get the explosive plays, more than 20 yards. And part of that was because they didn't have any play action game. That's somewhat due to not being able to run the ball effectively. If you want to have a running fake be effective, the defense has to respect the run. If they don't even care about the run, then the run fake isn't going to work on them. But hopefully that's some new wrinkles that the Bengals will be able to add to the offense and not get stale and just basically call the same plays that they've been calling for the last 3 or 4 seasons. Because defenses catch on. Everybody is adapting and changing all the time in the NFL, and the things that used to work won't necessarily work. I mean, obviously, T. Higgins and Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow are still unbelievably talented, but teams find ways to take some of those advantages away when possible. We've seen sometimes teams are just, they don't have the guys. They don't have the guys to guard T. Higgins or Jamar Chase one-on-one, and they can't play zone, and there's nothing we can really do. But if teams have the guys, a good defensive scheme can take some of those things away. But Joe Flacco, he came in and played after Joe Burrow. He looked okay, nothing spectacular, but he ran the offense efficiently. That's what you want to see out of Joe Flacco. Defense, hard to say because it wasn't the Lions starting team. So the defense looked okay. They got an interception off a ball that bounced off of the receiver's chest, basically, or off his face. Isaac Tesla probably should have caught it, but it just ricocheted off of him straight up into the air, and Jordan Battle came in and got the opportunistic interception like he did a few times last season. We saw some suspect tackling. Still didn't see a lot of great plays coming out of Demetrius Knight or Barrett Carter, or really any of the Bengals linebackers and safeties. I mean, except for that Jordan Battle interception. Saw some missed tackles going on out there. I don't think we saw Taco Tacario Davis. He was injured, so he didn't get to play. But some of the rookies that we did see, Cassius Howell, 2nd-round pick, he was flashing some nice pass rush moves. Specifically, he had like a hesitation move, and he also had like a nice spin move on a guy to get inside. I think he deflected a pass if he didn't cause a fumble, but he was in there making plays. Chris Jenkins got in and got a sack. He's in his contract season, so he's got to make something happen. And he did the Macarena after the sack. I don't think Anthony Munoz knew what kind of dance it was, but it was the Macarena, I'm pretty sure. We also, another rookie made a big impact. Jack Endries, what was he, like 6th round, 7th round tight end? I think he was the 7th round. Got overlooked by a lot of people, and he was going to make everybody pay. And he had a couple of nice catches. He had a touchdown, and then he had a catch, maybe like a screen or a delayed release pass, where he broke a couple tackles, made a nice move out in the open field, and did not jump up in the air and get knocked out on the ground to get a concussion. Tanner Hudson, in this game, he's still playing in preseason games, even though he's like 30-something years old. Tanner Hudson caught a pass and tried to hurdle a guy. Again, he forgets all the time this is how he got hurt. Tanner Hudson got a concussion, exactly, almost carbon copy of this play. He tried to jump up in the air. Somebody cut his legs out and he fell right on his head. This time, he like caught himself a little bit in the air and was able to not land directly on his head and concuss himself. But you got to watch out for that. If you don't have like a safe landing, don't jump. But what else? Cash Style looked good. Jordan Battle, I mentioned that. Defensive line in general, I think Landon Robinson made a few good plays. I don't know if McKinley Jackson showed up anything, but getting all those guys back healthy, including BJ Hill, who's going to be coming back starting practice. He had that foot injury he was dealing with, and he did not play at all up until now. Shamar Stewart is still recovering from that knee hyperextension, but he's doesn't have crutches or anything serious. He's just kind of got a knee sleeve that he's wearing around the locker room apparently, and people have seen him working out over on the rehab field. So hopefully they'll get Shamar Stewart back sooner rather than later, and he won't have to miss a significant portion of the regular season games. We didn't see Brian Cook, the new safety from Kansas City. He has some kind of an injury. I wasn't even sure what it was, but he was working rehabbing, so hopefully that's just something short term because he's going to be a big part of that defense. Don't want him to miss too much. But that speaks well for the depth of the Bengals defensive line. Hopefully they'll be able to be more effective than they were, because after last year when the starters would go out, there was a significant drop off to those second string guys, and teams would just absolutely run over the Bengals defense when their starters were out, especially. But the secondary is looking better. DJ Ivy, Fig Newton, like Taco Davis, some of those guys are going to be, I don't even know if you call him Taco Davis. I call him Tacario Davis. He probably wouldn't like that if I called him Taco. But other guys are making their case for why they should make this roster. Jalen Davis, all those kinds of guys. Now, it's going to be interesting in the defensive secondary, defensive line, who makes the team. It's also going to be a tough choice in the tight ends room because they've got so many tight ends on the roster right now. They got Mike Gesicki, Drew Sample, Tanner Hudson, Eric All, Cam Grandy, Jack Endries, and Josh Caddis, who's coming back from an injury. But Tanner Hudson, like I mentioned, he's getting up there in age, and he's not a great blocker. He can catch, no doubt about that, and that's especially important. He's like a poor man's Mike Gesicki, but could Jack Endries kind of take that? Because Drew Sample is like the blocking tight end, and it's going to be a question of how healthy is Eric All. I know they really like Cam Grady for whatever reason. He hasn't really flashed much in the game, but they keep him around. But it's going to be a decision. Do they keep the younger guys at the expense of getting rid of some of those trusted veterans? Next to the tight ends on the offensive line, we got the tackles. And maybe one of the more shocking developments was seeing Joe Burrow get hit in this game. He was sacked at least once on kind of a stunt up the middle. I wouldn't really say that Dalton Reisner missed the block. It was kind of like a looping around. The guy went from one side of the line all the way around to the other. Nobody picked him up, and he got a free hit because maybe it was a coverage sack. You could call it a coverage sack because Joe Burrow was holding the ball for like 3 or 4 seconds before the guy got to him. So coverage sack. But then we saw Orlando Brown Jr. give up the outside edge, and the guy came around, and on the last play Joe Burrow was in, got his arm hit from behind. Ball kind of fluttered, went out of bounds. Felt incomplete, but you don't want to see Joe Burrow getting hit. You don't want to see Joe Burrow's throwing arm getting hit, especially, you could get fingers or wrist or whatever injured that way. But also, I mean, it wasn't even like a really great effort by Orlando Brown Jr. to try to put a block on this guy. And so he's, they signed him up in the offseason for a contract extension. I'm not already going to say I told you so based off of one preseason game. But a few episodes ago, I was wondering whether or not the Bengals should resign Orlando Brown Jr. or not. And I thought maybe it would be a better idea to use the money that they could potentially save by letting him go on somebody else. But the counter argument is, what better offensive tackle would I have acquired, and how would I have done it? Would it have come through the draft? Would I have tried to trade or sign a free agent? Maybe he was the best option that they had available to them. But the early signs are not looking good on Orlando Brown Jr. And there's been some clips coming out of training camp of him getting beat and run over by some of the defensive linemen. But then there's a question, well, did he get his feet tangled up? Did somebody trip him from behind? Not really sure, but Orlando Brown Jr., they always used to introduce him as, 4-time Pro Bowler, multi-Pro Bowl Orlando Brown. He has 0 Pro Bowls since he's been with the Bengals. In the last 3 seasons he's been with them, they have not made it to the playoffs. That's one thing the Bengals are going to have to change. And this schedule that the Bengals have is looking like it should be very favorable, let's say. I'm not going to say easy, but it should be a favorable schedule for the Bengals to get off to a good start, get a lead in the AFC North, and at least get a wild card berth. And if they don't make it to the playoffs, I know I keep saying this like every year, but if they don't make it to the playoffs, they got to make a change at head coach. Duke Tobin and Zach Taylor and all these people can get up in a press conference in front of a microphone and go on and on and on about how everybody is accountable and we're, doing the right things and yada, yada, yada. We have trust and belief in everybody, but they keep getting the same results from the same guys and nothing has changed. And they just say, well, we did it before, so we know how to do it again. Just believe. I don't know. It's getting old. To me, it's getting old. But some people, obviously, some fans are just happy to go along with it. But next up, the Bengals are going to be hosting the Chicago Bears. They're coming in this weekend, 22nd. What is that? Saturday. So they play again Saturday against the Bears at Paycor Stadium. They're going to have some joint practices on Thursday between the Bears. Hopefully nobody gets injured like they did, what was that, last year, 2 seasons ago? Like multiple guys tore their patellar tendons practicing against the Bears up in Chicago. But like I said, Dante Myers, Colby Young, Jack Andrews, anybody else? Keyshawn Williams, kick returner, punt returner. He got added as a free agent pickup at the end of last season, and he had a little bit more juice in his returns, honestly, than Charlie Jones. The only thing about Charlie Jones is he's had like 1 touchdown every season and then not much after that. And he doesn't really add much in the receiving game. But Charlie Jones was a 4th-round pick by the Bengals. So they had so much belief in him. I still feel like they're probably going to keep him, although I don't really know why. But that's going to be a weird battle at returner. Is Charlie Jones, the former Bengals draft pick, going to do enough either in special teams or offensively to justify having him on the roster? But week 1, they're getting ready for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That's still about a month away at this point. So looking around the rest of the NFL, specifically the AFC North, the biggest story is the Cleveland Browns still haven't decided who their starting quarterback is going to be. They had Deshaun Watson start, and then Shadur Sanders came in after him and then gave way to Dylan Gabriel. And Watson was 11 for 15, 126 yards. He got stripped, sacked, fumbled. So he had a turnover. Shadur Sanders came in. He had a couple nice passes, but also some bad decisions. 6 of 11, 79 yards, and a interception that he completely missed the guy. He said after the game, he made the right decision and he threw it to the right guy. He just didn't make a good throw. So he's happy with that. He's like, sometimes bad throws just happen. but he is in his mind he had a good throw. So Dylan Gabriel also had a terrible pass that, yeah, he just like overthrew the guy by 10 feet right into the defender's hands for like back-to-back interception. So I don't know what the Browns are going to do at quarterback. They might end up going back with this Deshaun Watson if he continues to look competent, because the other two guys, Shadur and Dylan Gabriel, didn't even look like. Well, I mean, Shadur looked okay on a couple of plays, but it's probably going to be Deshaun Watson unless something crazy happens. Unless they're trying to trade him. Maybe that. I don't think anybody's going to trade for Deshaun Watson, though. The Browns would probably love to do that, though. Somehow get his salary off of their books and get rid of him. But if he's back from that Achilles injury anywhere close to his capabilities, he might be the best quarterback on the roster. But it doesn't matter. Browns are probably going to be terrible like they are every season. Steelers, they got Drew Aller, a third-round pick at quarterback. He apparently came in and looked reasonably good. He led the Steelers to 3 touchdown drives, and he had 2 touchdown passes and a rushing touchdown. But it's against backups. They're not game planning, all that kind of stuff. But for a Steelers fan, that's encouraging because Aaron Rodgers said this is definitely going to be his last season. So they're going to need somebody at quarterback going forward. Maybe it will be Drew Aller. We'll see. Ravens, I don't think Lamar Jackson played at all, but the Ravens are still probably going to be pretty good this season. Raiders and Fernando Mendoza, the number 1 overall pick. He had his first touchdown pass. Seemed like relatively prepared. I'm sure he's going to be very astutely studying all of his game plans. He seems like a super nerd, Fernando Mendoza. He when I hear him speak, he sounds like Tom Brady. I don't know if anybody else has picked up on that, but his voice, his cadence, his inflection, even like the tone and the tenor of his voice, it sounds exactly like Tom Brady to me. Just maybe like a little bit younger because he's like, 30 years younger than Tom Brady, but very similar. I wouldn't be surprised if Fernando Mendoza is the kind of freak that he's like studied Tom Brady so much that he tries to speak like him. Or I don't know if they grew up in the same part of the country. That could be, I don't know. But spitting voice sound, I guess not be spitting image, but sounds just like Tom Brady is my point. Anyway, the Vikings announced that Kyler Murray is going to be starting quarterback over JJ McCarthy. Not a big surprise there because Kyler Murray was, former number 1 overall pick. He's been to Pro Bowls. He's played in the league. He's battled some injuries, but just from pedigree and all that kind of stuff, I would say Kyler Murray was the favorite to win that job. And that's, I'm assuming, why he picked the Vikings instead of any other team he could have gone to at his minimum salary this season. So he probably had some kind of assurances going to Minnesota on the way there that, hey, if everything works out, you're going to be the starting quarterback. So that's not really that much of a surprise. And apparently, Tua with the Falcons didn't go that well. He fumbled a snap, 3 for 5 for 22 yards. Not a lot of offense, but the Falcons probably are not going to be much to write home about this season either under Kevin Stefanski. They're still waiting for Michael Penix Jr. to come back from that ACL injury that he's still on the mend from. Cam Ward had a little bit of a rough outing, 5 for 12 against the 49ers. But again, Titans probably not going to be that good, and it's preseason, so you never know. Jeremiah Love for the Cardinals, 11 carries, 58 yards, and 14 receiving yards on 3 catches, but sprained his ankle. It's going to keep him out a few weeks. Doesn't need surgery or anything like that, but he's going to be out for the rest of the preseason for sure. And just any injury is never a good injury, but especially a running back with a high ankle sprain, not what you want in your first NFL action. But there'll be plenty of time for him. Buffalo and the new stadium, they got that opened up, and everybody was complaining about the grass being too soft and chunks of sod flying up everywhere. So they'll have time to get that all figured out. That's the thing. People complain about AstroTurf and artificial turf, but then stadiums that have grass, then the grass is coming up everywhere. So it's very rare. Well, if the grass were perfect, nobody would ever say anything because they just wouldn't complain. That would be the expectation. But if there's anything ever wrong, then people are quick to point it out. But I'm glad Buffalo has grass in their stadium. It's going to be interesting to see how they keep that grass in the middle of winter when there's like 3 feet of snow. I'm sure they'll have it heated or they'll bring in some new grass from wherever. But for the Los Angeles Rams, Aaron Donald has still not made up his mind. He did another workout, second workout. They're calling it a tryout, but I don't know why they need to like keep looking at him. But he'll eventually make up his mind whether or not he wants to play. And apparently, he wants to find out how his body responds to practicing. But I wouldn't be surprised if we see Aaron Donald, especially if the Rams are good. Aaron Donald's probably going to be back on the team at some point this season. Myles Garrett has been having some kind of an injury, so he hasn't been practicing that much, but he's going to be dominating the Rams defense. Puka Nacua had some kind of maybe a groin injury or something like that, but shouldn't be anything long term. Von Miller, at 37 years old, has signed with the Cowboys for a 1-year deal. 8-time Pro Bowler, Super Bowl winner. He's going to come back. I think he's got 2 Super Bowls at least because he had the Broncos. I don't know. Maybe I'm off, but he's from Texas, Dallas originally, so that'll be, I don't know. Maybe he's got family back there. Najee Harris, running back who injured his eye last year in some kind of weird fireworks accident. He got cut by the Chargers. He's signing a 1-year deal with the New York Giants. That'll be interesting. Breece Hall for the Jets had a groin strain that's going to keep him out for a few weeks. And in terms of other NFL news, there's been a few injuries, a few guys getting hurt here and there. Offensive linemen are going down left and right. So that's one thing that, for the most part, the Bengals have been able to avoid, that big, serious injury to one of the players they're going to be counting on. But for the Bengals so far, it's looking like a lot of these rookies and young players are making strides to solidify a spot on the roster. Defensive line is shaping up to be hopefully better and not a complete sieve and getting walked over top of like they were the last couple seasons. Hopefully that means that the Bengals defensive backs and linebackers will be able to make more plays. There's going to be a little bit more competition, maybe for Andre Iosivas at that wide receiver 3 spot, but I think he's got that solidified there. Maybe that wide receiver 4 spot will be up for grabs more so than Andre's spot. Tight end is going to be a question mark. How many tight ends do they use? Do they use 2 tight end sets a lot? What are they going to do? Maybe even 3 tight ends sometimes. I forgot to mention Evan McPherson, 3 for 3 on field goals, including one from over 50 yards. He looked solid. That whole operation between the long snapper, the holder, the kicker, even the punting game has looked pretty well. Although I think Ryan Rico had a touchback. It should have been an easy coffin corner, like pin him deep, and he kicked it straight into the end zone. Not what you want out of that, but still got that big leg. Oh, one thing I forgot, Dax Hill, he's battling some kind of a hamstring injury, which is not good for a defensive back who's going to rely on like a lot of straight line speed and acceleration. You got to have healthy hamstrings, and those can kind of linger, as we've seen. You don't want to come back too early from the hamstring, and you can re-strain it and set yourself back. So a few smallish kind of injuries. It's a small injury if it's not to you, but some of those guys hopefully will be back at full strength by the time the season rolls around a month from now. Oh, and I almost forgot. The best line from the entire preseason game was one of the Bengals defensive backs. I think his name was Russ Yeast. Yeah, number 39 for the Bengals. He had an interception that prevented the Lions from scoring a touchdown. And the Bengals announcer on television, he comes up, he's like, Yeast rises to the occasion and gets the interception for the Bengals. So maybe the greatest announcer line of all time in a Bengals preseason game. Yeast rises to the occasion. Got to give him Mike Potts? Something like that. It doesn't matter. The guy who calls the Bengals games with Anthony Munoz. Good job by him. So on that note, I'm going to leave you guys with the Who Dey and stay hungry for more Bengal Bites.